What's going on, boys? A couple weeks back, I did a interview with a very special someone who runs a conference called Handmade Seattle. What's Handmade Seattle? Glad you asked. This isn't a sponsorship, by the way. I just really love the handmade community. Picture every conference ever, alright? Now strip away all of the bullshit and dumb sponsors, and now you're left with the absolute essence of it. Handmade Seattle is this generation's greatest minds in the programming space coming together and talking about the shit that really matters. The bleeding edge of software craftsmanship. Don't believe me? That's okay. Here's a tweet from literally the world's greatest programmer alive today. Alright, yes, so, Randy, where do I sign up? Now here's the funny thing. The entire event is being live streamed for free on the 16th through the 18th of November. So mark your goddamn calendars and sign up for the newsletter. If you're interested, I'd highly recommend also buying a ticket to support the event. The man behind it, Abner, runs the entire thing without any sponsors and relies on the tickets and donations to keep the entire thing running. And here, speaking of the man, the myth, the legend, Abner and I had a little bit of a chat a couple weeks back about my ascent on YouTube and my descent down into C programming. Figured I'd repost it up here for y'all to watch. But pause the video right now, go sign up to the Handmade newsletter if you haven't already to get notified when the event is live, so you don't forget. And without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this little interview.
Randy, what are we drinking today?
Look, I'm not usually a beer guy, but that's kind of the only thing here where I live at the moment. So I'm gonna crack a cold one real quick. Give me a sec to get a grip on this. There we go.
So it's not wine.
So no chocolate wine, unfortunately. So I kind of dropped the ball on that one, but
Oh, it's okay. Even in Seattle, it's so hard to find chocolate wine. Anywhere else, I think would be like just twice as difficult or something. So
does it actually taste very chocolatey and nice?
yeah, have you ever had Ovaltine or Nesquik? It's basically Nesquik with an after punch. You know? So,
That's a really good way of putting it. I love that.
yeah. Well, cheers to you, mate. There we go.
Cheers, man. Cheers.
All right. So Randy, I know you thanks to again Ryan Fleury, right? And the community here knows Ryan Fleury really well. And for those who don't know, we've done an episode with Ryan Fleury. You can check it out on the Handmade Dev Show. Okay, so and we're gonna talk about your relationship with Ryan later. But the more I've thought about it, I only have a small glimpse into your life. I know you're a game developer. I know you're into some of the handmade stuff. I know you very specifically around the time you were like a faithful servant to the YouTube algorithm. Right?
Okay.
So,
yeah.
right. But other than that, like not much else. So maybe we can rewind the clock as much as you think makes sense to your history before you became like a game developer. Like what were your interests in like programming and computers? How did that happen? Like how did you get introduced in your life to the idea of programming or computers?
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was all introduced, like programming in general was actually introduced through the lens of game dev as a mechanism for actually making games.
Yeah.
So I started out probably when I'd say like grade 9 or 10 in high school. So I was around like 15, right? And I was playing Daisy Standalone, if you're familiar with the game. And I was like, you know what, what are the devs doing here? You know, like what's going on? I'm sure I could make a better game if I were to try, right? So then I went down this whole rabbit hole of like researching game dev and all that kind of stuff. And I started out small. I don't know whether this was related to the whole Daisy thing or maybe it was earlier. But I kind of like subconsciously, I was playing a lot of Minecraft at the time. Like I pumped tens of thousands of hours into that bad boy, and modded Minecraft in particular was really great. And I actually started making my own Minecraft mod, and it was basically Daisy but in Minecraft. So I had no idea how to program. It was just in Java, and I was kind of just typing random things in and just getting rid of the red squiggly lines and following YouTube tutorials and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I eventually kind of like made a bit of a mod and then upgraded from there, playing Daisy. One day I was like, yeah, let's figure out how to make an actual game. And I realized that, a 3D kind of zombie survival would be a little bit of an overscope for the first game. So I decided to try and make a Terraria clone instead because I really like Terraria.
Interesting.
And yeah, I mean, I just went down a whole rabbit hole of that. Dug into Unreal Engine three or four. Yeah,
Probably
took a
4.
couple of courses, and that's kind of how I got into programming. It was literally through the blueprint scripting in Unreal Engine. Like that's actually how I learned how to program, was visually. It was very strange, and then I like slowly mapped the like if statement concept of like you have like one input and two outputs. I like mapped that down into programming, and there was like a bunch of examples of that, like the for loop and variables and everything from the visual perspective in the blueprints down into programming. So it was
Wow.
pretty much like the exact opposite of what you would call kind of like handmade start. It was literally starting all
180
the way at the
degrees.
like high
Yeah.
level, top level, and like slowly peeling back the layers and diving down. And then yeah, kind of just over the years, went from Unreal Engine to try and figure out how to make my own C++ engine. And then after I realized that I was just going to be completely horrible at that, I hit up Ryan, and you know he was working on his own engine at the time, and yeah, we kind of just partnered up, and here we are today, I guess, like years later.
Yeah, but okay, I'm pretty sure it was Unreal Engine 4, right? I think you're too young to have played with Unreal Engine 3.
Four.
And, yeah.
The latest one's 5, right?
Yeah, that's the latest one.
Yeah, four.
Yeah, and I think Blueprints was introduced in 4, as far as I know. But that's interesting. Now, I feel like there's a bit of a gap here between how it became that you wanted to peel back the layers, right? Like, how does somebody go from, I want to make a game, I'm using Unreal Engine 4, I'm using, blueprints and all of that stuff, and I really want to get this game done. How do you go from there to saying, no, it makes sense to peel back layers? Like, was it just some curiosity like inherent in you, or like did you read about something, or like what happened?
Yeah, it was a mix of sheer curiosity, and at the time I was doing something with collision, and I wanted to break open the Unreal Engine source code, compile something myself to try and figure out my own custom solution to something. Excuse me. In hindsight, it was completely unnecessary, but like that's just what I thought I needed to do, right? So then I dove through the Unreal Engine source and realized pretty quickly, like, this is so incredibly complicated. There's so much stuff going on here. In order to learn all this and actually make the changes that I need to make, I would have to learn so much. So I figured I was also following this other kind of Australian programming game dev kind of YouTuber at the time called the Churner.
Yeah.
And so he was doing a series on how to make a game engine pretty much from scratch, like not entirely from scratch, but so I followed that and started making my own game engine. And it was pretty much just curiosity of yeah, like how does all this work behind the scenes, and how can I actually get a game up and running with the minimum amount of complexity and craft in the entire stack, which, I kind of craved from taking one look at Unreal Engine's code base.
Yeah. And how do you find Ryan? How did that occur? Like, it's not like you live in the same country.
Okay, yeah.
So.
We've known each other for years at this point. It was literally like when I first started just doing anything. It was like he was actually the reason I started making YouTube devlogs in the first place. It's kind of a crazy story, but
yeah, tell
when
us.
I first started out with game dev, I hired an artist to do some of the like the pixel art for me, and we shared the same artist, and the artist probably like retweeted or tweeted some of the assets he was making for Ryan. So then I followed Ryan through that and just like hit him up, and we started chatting that way. Long time ago at this point, but yeah, and I was kind of following him ever since. He was making a couple of devlogs on YouTube, and yeah, I was getting into game dev at this time and starting work on my own game, and I figured, yeah, well, that would,
Oh, so in a way you were
progress would actually be kind of cool.
in a way, you were inspired by the devlogs that I guess Ryan was making, and then
Yeah. I saw the devlogs that he was making. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I wonder if I could go do that.
interesting. And was it fun for you to make those devlogs? Like, did you have to like find a lot of equipment and
Oh no. Yeah. So the whole YouTube thing came like, I mean, at that stage, uh, pretty easily because I'd done a bunch of making YouTube videos as a kid, like just Minecraft Let's Plays and all that kind of stuff. So there wasn't really much setup work. Like I knew how to edit, I knew how to record. I was just I wasn't using a webcam at that point, so I was just slapping things together. So there really wasn't that much like learning there, really.
now at some point, it sounds like I don't know. You seem to get better and better at making these kinds of devlogs to the point that, and I'm playing a clip again for the audience, like to the point where it just becomes massively popular. So at least in the like in the world of programming, like we're a niche kind of audience, right? We're a niche industry. So for you to reach, hundreds of thousands of views on a video, or break 1 million and stuff like that, and amass like so many subscribers, just because you're talking about developing a game, especially like a handmade type of game, that's because which makes it even extra niche to me. Like, but even with all of those things against you, like the nicheness of it, the smallness of our industry, you still made videos to the point that I don't know, maybe they were comedic enough, entertaining enough, polished enough that you amassed like almost like a cult following. I want to say close to that, right? So I don't know. I could be wrong. You can tell me. Tell me about what happened when you noticed that you kind of exploded in popularity. Like, did you turn YouTube into like a career after that, or like how did you react to the popularity? Like, just like walk me through your mindset back then. Yeah.
Okay, so in the beginning, it was very much I'm just doing these videos, so I have a mechanism of sharing my progress in game development, and it wasn't really that highly edited. I was just kind of slapping progress videos together of like, hey, look, I did this, and then I was working as a barista making coffees at the time, and I really was not enjoying that. And I was like, okay, well, I wonder if I could somehow get enough views on YouTube and maybe make like a Patreon or something, and so I could quit my job and start doing that full time, right? And I remember one year I got a tax return, which is like smack bang in the middle of the year, and it was about 2 or 3 thousand Australian dollars, which is like kind of decently equivalent in US. You just times it by 0.7 or what. And so I was like, all right, this is enough runway for about like 3 months of me just quitting my job and going full time into YouTube to try and make something out of it, right? And at the time, I hadn't blown up just yet. It was probably like my biggest video probably got around like 10,000 views or something, which is still quite a bit, especially at the time. But I figured, yeah, well, if I can try and figure out a way of getting more views on YouTube and turning that into a bit of career, then that'll be amazing. Like that could fund my game development, and I could step into that full time and not have to make coffees for a living, right?
For sure.
And so yeah, I had a few months worth of runway, and absolutely no clue how to kind of make a sustainable career out of that. But I did try my best, and I basically the thing that I was looking at was I was trying to figure out, all right, well, the YouTube algorithm is serving people videos. How do I optimize for that, right? How do I, like, what variables do I need to maximize in order to get views? So I was looking at things like click-through rate and retention. Audience retention is like, how long do people watch the video for? And at the end of the day, it all really came down to, does the thumbnail have like an intriguing kind of like click into it? And is the video good to a point where people will watch the entire thing all the way through, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of made me just really dive into, all right, how do I make a really, really entertaining video? And it stopped becoming about the progress being made in the game. Like that was more of an excuse to talk about like an entertaining story around that kind of progress.
So there was a phase shift from I am interested in making video games. I was inspired by things that I saw like from Ryan, that I could like leave Unreal and like do things from scratch and have control over making a really like powerful experience for the game. Okay, so you have that mindset, but then your videos exploded in a way that sort of like there was a phase shift such that now your incentives aren't much about the love of the making the game. It's more about, can I make enough progress in the game such that I can make the videos that people find like funny or like will get the maximum views, and then that'll give me the if I can be blunt, like the income that would be nice to have, so I don't have to be like the barista or something like that. Is that kind of accurate?
That's exactly what it is. And you know, we can definitely get into how that kind of backfired in a bit, but to start off with, it definitely worked. It was literally at the exact moment that I switched from using like working on my own engine to using Ryan's engine. I had like one video that just blew up, and it was like switching my game to a new engine in 1 week or something like that.
Yeah.
And I hit a certain level of attention grabbiness, entertainment of, this is a decent video. I can sit here and watch the entire thing without being bored, right? Like that combined with, it was a very interesting click-through. Like it was like the thumbnail was a nice before and after, and there was like very clearly a nice after change with the transition into the new engine, and it was a nice title, and yeah, that kind of just like,
it's been 2 months.
It was like gasoline on the fire, and that kind of sparked that way.
I did think I found the video, so I posted it on the chat. So if people want to take a look and follow along this interesting story. So, okay, how many? Can I get an idea of? I guess we don't have to dive too deep into it, but like how long would it take you to make the devlogs? I guess like in relationship to actually working on the game. So like imagine like, oh, I have to make a video about some feature I added to the game. I wonder if like making that video about the feature you added to the game like took you longer than actually adding that feature to the game or something like that. Did you have moments like that, or?
Yeah, over time it just like, it started off as a relatively kind of like easy, kind of high leverage thing to do. Like you just recorded me doing a little voiceover in the moment, like showing it live, and then I just cut that together and I'd be done with it. That was kind of like the very old kind of original, here's my progress. You're just like walking around the game and like commentating over the thing. And then across time, it became more and more like actually writing out scripts for the entire video of what to say, recording the B-roll, and then doing a voiceover afterwards. And especially with that video, switching to a new engine, that was probably the tipping point of switching into like scripting out the entire videos and doing voiceovers and whatnot. And as time went on, that just got like ramped up more and more and more to a point where I made a video, and the video actually took me like, I think it was something ridiculous, like 2 months to record and edit. And that was actually, I mean, it was worth it because that turned out to be my biggest video, and that's like my most popular one that hit over 1 mil, and that's the one with Professor rework and all that kind of stuff. So it was an entertaining video, but the amount of time that it took to actually make the video was just way more than the implementation of the programming. Yeah. So like the focus very much shifted from making a game, making progress, to trying to make an entertaining YouTube video.
So you were now operating under a different business. We just got to say, like, you weren't, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were no longer in the business of like being a game developer. You were in the business of YouTube content creator at this point.
For sure. Yeah. Completely just switched into, how do I get as much views as possible?
But it sounds
That's
like
pretty much
it was obviously a thriving business as far as I can tell, because if you had that much attention grabbing at that much like subscriber base, I can imagine you would have enough support to be able to just like run this business and like not have to go back to like the barista job. So there was something nice about that, I suppose. But then like give me a timeline, like how long did that last? Let's say, because spoiler alert, I guess, like you're no longer doing those kinds of videos at the moment. Like you sort of like are taking a break from that. So like, so how long did that like last? Just like a few months or a year or like?
Yeah, I don't know exact timeline. Like as soon as I hit the peak of, this video took me a couple months to do. That's a little bit crazy. I want to actually be making games here. But it did actually provide me with a mechanism for actually quitting the job as a barista and actually, like I was no longer being a full-time barista. I was being like a full-time YouTuber, right?
Right.
So, but that I kind of noticed that, and it's kind of like it's a bit of a paradox with YouTube. I mean, initially it kind of started out pretty well because I got pretty lucky with video ideas and whatnot. But as soon as I started relying on YouTube as a means for generating income and full time, the pressure kind of just ramped up a lot. And all of a sudden, this next video, it has to be better than the last video, or it has to at least get a lot of views, right? And
this is where we're getting into the backfire territory. You said it somehow backfired on you. So let's dive into that. So what does it mean for like your for this like awesome new thing, awesome helpful thing for your life? How did it backfire? What does it mean for it to backfire?
Yeah, so I got very caught up in like chasing the YouTube algorithm and trying to get views, and that led to the content kind of being I pretty much tried to optimize. Like I saw the fact that this last video took me like 2 or 3 months, right? So then I was like, okay, how can I make that quicker? So then I hired an editor to try and outsource the editing. So like all in the name of making that quicker so I could make games and focus more on the game development side of things. And that tanked the video quality quite a bit. It was still pretty decent, but it didn't have that like kind of chef kiss spiciness to it. So I over time, I pretty much tried to find, okay, what's the bare minimum amount of effort that I can put in order to keep the bills paid, keep the lights on, keep everyone happy. From the like audience perspective of, yeah, this is a good entertaining video. But also, how can I get as much time as possible? Like, how can I spend more time actually making games? Because that's really what matters to me. And I kind of ramped down the quality of the videos over time, and like stripped back more and more to the point where
like the bare minimum.
I was either like I was trying to outsource the video editing to someone else, or I was trying to do the video editing myself, but only spending like a few days or a week on it. And then if you go to the main channel and if you look at the latest video, you can kind of see, like if you look at all the videos, you can kind of see the progression of like the peak 1 million view video all the way down to the latest video, and like the difference in quality and amount of effort put into that is, yeah, well, you can see that, right? But it kind of it's pretty equivalent to the views as well. Like I was getting less and less views the less kind of effort I was putting into the videos. So it was kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy of I'm trying to optimize for putting as little effort into these videos as possible, while still maintaining the amount of like the sponsor deals and all that kind of stuff in order to keep the money flowing and the lights on. But it just got to a point where I was like, yeah, I just want to make games. I don't want to make YouTube videos anymore. Even just like rocking up and putting the bare minimum in,
yeah,
like, it felt like especially on the main channel, that I couldn't show up and do a poor job and just kind of like slap some footage together and put it up and be like, here you go, here's a video. Because like I set this insane kind of bar of expectations of what an entertaining video would be like. Like going underneath that felt really wrong to me. So I just kind of stopped uploading.
Now, tell me about the idea of maybe, because you said that the pressure was ramping up, the amount of time making the videos relative to adding features to your game was like insanely like uneven and unbalanced. And like, does this mean that maybe perhaps you entered in some kind of burnout phase or burnout stage, or would you never call it burnout?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, I was definitely burnt out for making YouTube videos. Like I would rock up to do editing, and I would just actively procrastinate doing it because I didn't want to. Like it was such an insane bar, like level of quality in my mind that I had to like keep kind of trying to face that. It definitely burnt me out. And going on in the background throughout this is also like my entire game dev journey of trying to figure out how to make games and how to do them properly. Yeah. And like that's just an entirely different story in itself. So it's kind of like these two things of YouTube career versus game dev career. And my game dev career still really wasn't going that well at the time. Not like I still had a bunch of time to put into game dev, and I was still actively doing it. But I was very much in this headspace of well, you know, starting out making this kind of Terraria clone. Like it started out as a Terraria clone, but evolved into its own kind of thing over time. And that's just what I'm calling the dream game at the moment. And so it quickly became this like infinite scope, massive project in my mind as well that I was working on over time. And that's just a whole
and doing
thing.
it the handmade way is not trivial necessarily, right? Because like the ecosystem right now rewards you for using pre-existing engines and frameworks and libraries, and
it's very quick to hop in Unity and download a few assets and bash some things together, and you know get whatever game up and running or whatever mechanic that you want to program really quite easily. Because that's just a whole ecosystem there of pre-built stuff.
Yeah, and I want to dive into like why, you know, how the handmade stuff is going for you in your current game dev journey. But let's finish up with like the reason I've been asking you so much about your YouTube stuff is like at Handmade, and like especially me in this show and on the stream, like I encourage people to have like an entrepreneurial spirit, you know, like this idea of like you can be your own man, like you can like run your own business, you can go indie, like especially handmade people. I think like if the handmade people want to make a dent in the tech industry, like a dent in like how we build quality software and quality games, that's like a better alternative to like all the corporate, you know, garbage that's coming out, like the Mac software, you know, coming out of like corporations. Like we can have a community where we care about low level stuff and we care about quality software and complain about the Mac software from corporations, but like that's not enough to make a change in the industry. Like we have to ship stuff, right? We have to build stuff and we have to ship stuff and tell the user, put in your user's hands and say, this is better. Like this is a better alternative. Like we care about you as the user. Like this is actually quality software. Like if we want to get to that mindset, we do need to have like an entrepreneurial spirit. But now I don't know how many paths there are to do that, right? Like one of the paths to do that, it seems to be like a content creator. Like you're streaming your stuff and you're like making YouTube videos and like you're getting Patreon supporters and all of that stuff. And like that worked for you, but that put you like in a different hamster wheel that had nothing to do with like making those games, and then you burned out and like because at some point I thought, okay, this is a path that maybe I could encourage somebody to take, but at the same time, like I see like the negative effects it had on your life and how much like you like the fact that you were making like this good amount of money, and like make no mistake, like I'll show people like you have a huge audience and you had like a very decent amount of income, but even that wasn't enough because there's this idea of like hamster wheel tactics that you had to be part of that made you miserable and that took away time from actually building the quality handmade game that you wanted to build, right? So that's the reason like I dive deep into this. Like, I don't know, is there any hindsight maybe perhaps to your story? Like, if you could go back and like think about what you would have done differently, like, do you have any ideas there?
Exactly. And I mean, that's kind of what I've spent the last like 8-9 months doing, ever since quitting YouTube in the first place, was just to kind of like wrap up the story.
Yeah.
Eventually kind of burnt out of YouTube, especially on the main channel. Like, I can't post videos anymore because it's just way too much effort to make those videos. But I definitely acknowledge the fact that if I wanted to put time and effort into making a really good YouTube video, for the sake of marketing a specific game or something like that, going back to that kind of like entrepreneurial vibe of like getting viewers in front of whatever product you're making, right? That's definitely what the main channel is going to serve as, and in future I will probably return to that and make a video, make something entertaining, because I know that I can go back and do that when I put 100% of my effort into that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, what do I want to be putting 100% of my effort into right now? And that's actually trying to figure out how to become a really good game developer and make good games. And I kind of realized that even with this dream game, I needed to just put that on pause and make a bunch of small games first. And like you said, actually ship something so I can put it in the hands of other people and say, yeah, look, here it is. And also just get better at making games and shipping games, right?
For sure, yeah.
Sorry, this beer is making me very gassy. I'm just burping like every 10 seconds.
No, it's all good, man.
Yeah, I can't remember where I was going with that, but all right, the kind of silver lining of if I had hindsight going back into this, what would I do? And my answer to that is exactly what I'm doing right now. Like, before I hopped in this call like 50 minutes ago, I literally just returned back to YouTube. And it's not on the main channel, it's actually on the second channel. And the second channel very much embodies the spirit of my old videos that I was making when I first started out. The old kind of videos that I was like looking at Ryan to inspiration for, and it's just progress videos of me sitting in front of the camera, making a game, walking through all the challenges that I'm doing in the game, like not trying to make an entertaining video, just taking clips, bashing them together, and uploading them to YouTube, however imperfect the video is, from a retention perspective of someone sitting there watching it and being highly entertained the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So it's really good to have that space of just, in a way, just shipping videos that are imperfect, and just getting them out there. And
so like slowly and organically building. I mean, you already have an audience, but let's say you would still continue to slowly and organically build maybe like a new demographic, a new type of audience that is following you just because they want you to ship that game more than it's about those entertaining videos.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the main channel is very much a highly marketable. You can think of them as kind of like a bunch of like circles, and each of them are smaller than the other. So you have like the biggest circle, and that's kind of like the widest audience, marketable, highly entertaining stuff, where it would reach out into people who aren't necessarily even really, they don't really even care about game dev. They're just watching the video because it's an entertaining video about, you know, game development, right? And then you have like the next circle, which is probably like the second channel kind of vibes of the original videos that I was making, where I'm making progress on this game and it's kind of like this imperfect video, but you're not there for the entertainment value of the video. You're there for the journey of making the actual video game itself, and just watching the person make the game, right? And then, yeah, you can just like keep digging down and peeling back the layers in that. And I actually did that at the start of the year, because I was like, all right, well, I could just go back to making these kind of like raw, imperfect, old school videos on the second channel. But I kind of just wanted a complete break from YouTube to just have a hard reset and try and get by on the bare minimum. So I quit YouTube for like It's probably been like a whole year since I last uploaded on the main channel, or
Oh wow, I didn't
even on
know.
the second channel.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, I just quit making videos full stop, and I switched into, all right, what is the absolute bare minimum, the smallest circle of people that I can keep updated and just in the loop week to week, and like what's the bare minimum amount of effort that I can put into showcasing my progress.
Yeah.
And the answer to that was newsletters. It was like weekly newsletters, sending them out to a list of subscribers, and just rocking up once a week.
Like a change
typing out
log?
some words. Yeah, like a change log, and that's exactly what I started doing. So I've been doing that for the last.
Oh, I see it on your website. Cool. Yeah, I'm gonna post that
Yeah.
on the chat. Okay.
Ever since the start of the year, since I quit YouTube, I switched into kind of doing that. And yeah, that's been really good. Like that's just allowed me to completely focus on game development and figure out, all right, what's the best way I can sit down and make games and get good at making games, right?
Has there been some
really freed me
disappointment? Sorry to interrupt. Has there been some disappointment in like from your original audience that you've stopped making the very entertaining videos and like?
Oh yeah.
Okay, how have you addressed that? Maybe just like whatever, it is what it is, or
Is what it is. Yeah, you just look at that and be like, well, I could. There's no point trying to people please and like make sure absolutely everyone is getting what they want, because then at the end of the day, you're just not going to grow and be able to, like, if I was sitting here still making the same videos over and over again of, me sitting in front of a green screen, riding a broom, doing all the professor rework stuff, trying to do all these funny skits and making entertaining videos, then I would not be happy one little bit. And yeah, I mean, people aren't getting entertaining videos, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of happy doing what I'm doing, and
for sure,
that doesn't really matter.
And are you back to working as a barista, or are you able to do this full time? Like, what are you up to these days? Like, how does that look like day to day?
Yeah. So that's pretty much what I've tried to solve over the last 9 months since quitting YouTube. Like, how can I get by on the bare minimum, updating this kind of like closest inner circle of people who truly care about what I'm up to and the progress that I'm making as a game developer and all that kind of stuff, and human being broadly in general, right? So I try to figure out how can I live on the absolute bare minimum. So I started backpacking, and I've been traveling around a bit, and it's really cheap to go live in third world countries, because I'm very privileged to be coming from a country like Australia that has like a really strong dollar, and I can go into a place like Bali and then live off of like 800 Australian dollars a month, like just have all my expenses covered. So I have a very lightweight kind of amount of expenses coming in. So, but then it's a question of, all right, well, how do I actually get that $800 a month in the first place? And I kind of answered that a little bit through just riding the wave of my previous kind of massive audience that I had on YouTube. There was a few things there, like there was I built up a bit of a savings buffer from sponsorships and ad revenue and whatnot before even quitting in the first place. But like there's just a bunch of little income streams that add up to something somewhat sustainable for me. And that kind of looks like there's I don't know if you're familiar with Ko-fi or Ko-fi, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty much just
like buy me a coffee for $5 and you donate
just buy me a coffee
for
$5.
Yeah,
exactly. And I've been doing weekly change logs, making just providing updates to whoever subscribed to that. It was about the funnel looks something like, all right, so you get 1 million views on a video, and then you get probably like 200,000 subscribers off of those views, something like that, right? And then off of that, it's probably like 50,000, 30,000 subscribers on the second channel. And the second channel is like, it just keeps stepping down into these like smaller and smaller circles, right? And then from the second channel, it's like, okay, well, what's the step below that? And maybe it's something like live streaming over on Twitch. So you would probably get like 200 active viewers at a certain time, right?
Yeah.
And then like the kind of like base, like hard kind of bottom of all of this is the newsletter change logs that I've been sending out weekly. And it's been about 1,000 people subscribe to that and kind of viewing them each week. So yeah, like I'm lucky enough that 1,000 of those people, like all in all, probably get something around about like $200, $300 a month just off of donations from buying me a coffee to support what I'm doing. And then on top of that, there's just a few things that I'm riding the wave of my old kind of like YouTube heights of like getting a lot of views over there through. Like I have a bunch of Spotify playlists, and I actually get money to review songs on Spotify to potentially add them to my playlist, which is like very weird and random, but that's probably about like $400 a month. So it all adds up to a somewhat sustainable living if you take all these like tiny little
yeah, for
income
sure,
streams and add them up.
absolutely. And oh, that's very interesting. I think I was looking at your new YouTube channel because I found it, and like some people are calling you now like a computer gypsy. I don't know if that's like appropriate, so because you're backpacking, traveling the world. I'm guessing on visas and stuff. Like you,
Yep.
maybe you apply for visas every once in a while, and then you backpack to a new country and like work on your game full time. That's very unique. That's an interesting lifestyle. Okay.
It's really fun. Yeah, I mean, we can kind of dive into it a little bit, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was in Bali before where I'm at the moment. I'm living in Argentina at the moment. It's really great. It's not so great because I don't know a single word of Spanish.
Ah, como va a ser? Come on, my native language is Spanish, and I am offended. I'm kidding. So, are you in
Sí, sí.
Buenos Aires, and then or?
Buenos Aires. Yeah, yeah,
Ah, muy bien.
yeah.
Okay.
And no hablo español.
No te preocupes, eso está bien. Don't you worry.
It's just
I'm
a
just
lot
messing
of
with
those
you.
have been thrown around, and yeah, I definitely need to learn a bit of Spanish. But that's like my whole actual reason for coming to Argentina is because I wanted to learn Spanish, and then as soon as I got here, I was like, hang on, why do I want to learn Spanish when I haven't really learned math fundamentals properly, and I should really be focusing on that right now for game dev and all that kind of stuff. So as soon as I got here, I was like, all right, well, I'm not learning Spanish anymore, and I'm in a Spanish-speaking country. No one speaks a word of English, and just going around and trying to do the basics like order pizza or go get the laundry done is it's the whole thing in itself. So I'm fleeing back to Bali as soon as possible. But
Well, I appreciate your journey here because like, you're taking it, I guess, a step at a time in your life. Like you're like, hey, like I've realized that the YouTube career thing, like not my thing. I'm still very much in desire to shape a game that is like high quality, that is like in the handmade way. Therefore, what steps do I need to take in my life to go back to that, and how can I make it work? Right. And now, and you're just making it work. Like I really do appreciate that from you. And let's actually wrap up with the idea of like, again, handmade. Like, so, we mentioned Ryan Fleury, so we can maybe end the interview with this discussion about like your game and like your dream project and handmade and all of that stuff. So I'm playing a clip of Ryan Fleury here. Like, he's the guy who's making like an engine that you are, I guess, working with him to like use that engine of his, and which is like a handmade thing, and then you can build your game on top of that, right? So tell me a little bit about like your current project. You said you're building like smaller projects that will eventually build up to your like big game or something like that, right? So maybe can you tease me like one of those projects, like what they are and like what's interesting about them?
Cool. Yeah. I mean, well, I kind of realized that I just need to ship a bunch of small projects before shipping this kind of like massive game, right? And I just got done making a game. It's a survival game about not freezing to death. It's a very basic. I just pumped out in like 2 weeks using Ryan's. I wouldn't really call it an engine. It's more of just like it's an engine in the sense that GLFW is an engine, right? It's more of just like a bare bones framework. It's a wrapper over the operating system, over rendering,
Oh
to
yeah,
just kind of like make whatever you want, right?
absolutely.
And he's got a nice high level kind of rectangle renderer in there. So that's pretty much what I just used for this latest project of mine. And so yeah, that's the last project I did. I just got done with that. I've been editing a few videos over the last few days. Coming back to that whole like YouTube thing of like, I realized that, well, first of all, living on the road and kind of like backpacking around on the bare minimum and living in hostels, it's not that productive from the sense of there's not much stability there. So I wanted to get an Airbnb and kind of like settle down in the one spot so I could actually put like a bunch of hours into game dev and working on these small projects. So
Absolutely.
and in order to fund that, I've actually come back to YouTube a little bit on the second channel just to do the old school kind of like devlogs of just rock up, not care about entertainment value, and just pump out clips of what I've been up to.
Like you said, taking it a step at a time.
That's kind of where I'm
yeah.
at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And like, this is the first year, the audience might be bored because I say it all the time. Like, I'm full-time myself, like running handmade conferences and like putting together events to celebrate people like yourself, actually, right? And it's kind of the same thing. Like, I do sell tickets for a conference, but I also like have monthly supporters because I'm 100% indie. I don't have any sponsors. Like, usually conferences have like big sponsors like Sony, Microsoft, like Amazon, AWS is going to sponsor this conference. Now the problem is, if I am saying that a big problem in the industry is software that lands on users' hands that is like kind of bad, right? Like it crashes or it's buggy or it's just like all about milking money and ads and like making the user's life like more miserable than it needs to be. Imagine if I'm saying that, like, oh my God, like corporate software sucks, Handmade Seattle, sponsored by Amazon. Like that, just like
literally, yeah.
That doesn't really work, right? So like I'm also relying to some degree, like I'm figuring it out myself, like monthly donations and like selling tickets, but hopefully not too expensive and all of that stuff. So like, like it's a different instance of your situation because like, you're making a game, I'm running a conference, but like the principles are kind of the same, right?
Exactly,
So I'm with you, and like my spirit is with you, and I am wishing you luck. I hope people watch this interview like offline later and like subscribe to your change log. Like that's like the biggest thing you want to have people like do, and like support you on the coffee, buy you a coffee. So yeah, man, I'm with you. I support you, and let's maybe take a break. I think we've done almost an hour. Like time really flies with these interviews.
Time does fly, yeah.
Time does fly. If you can stick around maybe a few more minutes, we'll see if anybody has any questions, right?
I can stick around for as long as you'd like me to.
Oh, I appreciate that, Randy. Okay, so we're going to go on a break. I'm going to go use the bathroom. And then people on the chat, if you have a question for Randy, just like, tag my name or do like a Q colon to ask a question. And after the break, I will come back and ask those questions for you. If you don't have any questions, don't worry. I have more questions for Randy just to finish up the Q&A. So, Randy, I will see you very soon, okay? All right, we are back here for the Q&A session with Randy. This is the final stretch of the show. So we have a few questions from people. So let's, I'm going to pick a few. Let's see. From Future Millennium, Randy, did the YouTube to Twitch transition work out for you? Why or why not?
Not really. it was a very similar vibe of entertainment value. Especially, I noticed this. I started posting daily stream highlights on the second channel. I would go live, I would stream, I would then like those clips would then be edited down into a condensed video that would get put up daily on the second channel. And that was like the peak of we were talking about this of like a little bit earlier during the break, but that was like the peak of my kind of Mr. Krabs career, if you will, of just doing things just for the sake of money and just raking in like copious amounts of money. And so like that was like, in a sense, that was the peak of optimization that I found once coming all the way from like that 3-month, 1 million view video all the way down to, all right, I can just sit here live and like just have people edit the stream highlights and put them up on the second channel, and they could like that was just making such an unbelievable amount of money. But I noticed that I was completely miserable doing that because no games were being made, and despite me having all of the time in the world to be able to rock up and I just put the bare minimum in, and it really did not get done. So not really, but more recently I've tried experimenting with, all right, well, how can I actually live stream and not do that, and actually just rock up and
for sure.
Put the work in and not just put the bare minimum in, right, to do entertaining stuff.
Perfect. One more question from Future Millennium. Does Randy miss making entertaining content? Do you miss it at all? Somewhere? No.
I don't know.
Not really?
No, I like in a sense, what I've just like literally just the videos that I've just uploaded to the second channel just now, like an hour ago. You get little hints of me missing that and doing like these small little edits of entertainment. And I almost went down a bit of a rabbit hole here of going back to my old ways of making an entertaining YouTube video and posting it on the main channel. Like this second channel return was almost the main channel return, but it would have been me lowering the bar even more. And I was editing the main channel video, and I just noticed that I was like, nah, this does not feel right. Like I've lowered the bar way too much, and this is a very mid video, and I'm just gonna keep posting on the second channel because, in a sense, the second channel does not have a bar whatsoever. I can upload a 90-minute VOD of me sitting there doing like math or something in silence, just working out problems, and it would be fine, right? So I don't I do get glimpses of making entertaining stuff, but I've been like, now I'm channeling that into the second channel, and it's pretty good.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. A couple of more questions. So let's do this one from, let's pick up something random. Rekits. Question, Randy, what helps for finishing projects? How low level should someone go?
That is a very good question.
That is a good question.
Go as low level as you can possibly go without spending all of your time working on the necessary prerequisites to be able to work at a level like that. So for example, you are trying to make a project, say, I'm working on a game. But if every 10 seconds I'm stopping to go implement, I have to go learn rendering here, or I have to go do an operating system abstraction over here, or all that kind of stuff. Like I have to go make this physics thing. It really depends. Are you trying to ship projects? If so, just take all of the existing kind of good abstractions that are there. Like take all of the really good existing abstractions that you can work with. For example, things like no one's out here rewriting image importing, right? You just go and grab SDB image and we're done, because it's a nice single header library that you can just include, right? So look for all the good existing abstractions. And some people have like a certain tolerance for that. So some people will be completely fine just sitting up in Unity and making games doing it that way, right? Because it's like, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with sitting up and using an existing engine if your goal is to make games, because that just kind of makes sense. Like you can just pump out games like a madman over there, or you could, go into Unreal Engine and just program the entire game with blueprints, right? Like it's very easy, and I have a lot of friends that do that, but it just depends on your tolerance level of how much you can kind of outsource and trust existing implementations, I guess. So I can't remember exactly what the original question is, but I heard my band.
No, I think you answered it pretty well. Yes, and I would agree with that. If you're looking to ship high quality software in a handmade way, you can look at, like you said, existing abstractions over very common operations that aren't like a very complicated dependency, right? So like if you're using STB image, that's not a complicated dependency because it's just a single file with vanilla C code that will import a PNG file for you, so then you can render it later on in your game. That's not a complicated dependency, and it's abstracting over a very common operation, and it's like also written in a kind of handmade way. So you take that because you want to ship something, and you don't have the tolerance to like write everything from scratch if you have like limited time or limited resources, right? So there's a balancing act that you want to keep in mind here, which I think what Randy is trying to say, right? Like
exactly, yeah. And I mean, from my perspective, I personally don't want to be spending a bunch of time writing an OS abstraction or graphics abstraction or something like that. And I've kind of outsourced that to Ryan because I've seen that he's already done this stuff and put all the work into making a really good abstraction for this. So why not just team up with him and use his existing kind of framework and tools that he has, so I can kind of like sit it and like just kind of like take a step back and focus on the stuff that matters most to me, which is shipping games and getting good at game development, right?
Love it, love it. Let's finish up the interview with one more question. This is going to be just like for fun. What is your favorite game of all time, Randy? This is from Crackles. Thank you for the question, Crackles.
All time, that's very easy. That's Minecraft. I feel like that's a lot of people's all-time favorite.
It's not Majora's Mask. I mean, my necklace here is Majora's Mask. You need to please the host here. I'm just kidding. Minecraft, nice. What about Minecraft? What do you like about it?
Just like it's literally like a creation engine. Like you have some very simple rules. You can pick up a block and place it down anywhere else, and the amount of emergent creativity that comes from that is absolutely amazing. And the modding specifically was just insane, like making mod packs and like putting a bunch of mods together and creating your own kind of experiences. Like that's how I got into game development, was actually like right at the low level. It was like organizing mods together and making my own mod packs. Like that's actually how I started game development, because it's like you're essentially creating your own game by selecting a bunch of mods that go together, and you're creating your own kind of like experience, custom experience within Minecraft. And if you like throw multiplayer into that and you get your boys on a server, and it's so much goddamn fun. I absolutely love it.
Nice. All right, that's a fair argument. There's nothing multiplayer about Majora's Mask, so I'll forgive you. I will forgive you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also very young. Like I am 21 years old. Believe it or not.
No way.
And
I didn't know that. No, you're lying. No.
I'm not lying.
Because I just started my 30s, so this is like a decade, roughly a decade of difference. I am gonna okay. We gotta end this interview. I am frustrated. No, that makes sense.
So that means probably why there's such a gap
around the same time Majora's Mask was shipped.
I've never played Majora's Mask in my life, but it seems like fun.
All right. Well, Randy, thank you. I am literally subscribing to your changelog right now, so here you go. Boom.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Sign up for that.
It was so good coming in here and having a chat to you. Like you said earlier, like you're in a very similar boat of trying to just get by doing what you love doing and do the stuff that means the most to you without kind of letting like sponsorships and stuff like kind of like corrupt the way that you're doing things, right? And you just want to like rock up, do what you want to do. And like I'm a very big believer of go do what you want to do the most in the world, and then figure out how to make money on top of that. Like don't go figure out how to make money and then filter that through like what you want to do. Like just go do what you want to do and then figure out the money thing later. If you're in a position where you can actually do that, like you've got some savings to back you up and all that kind of stuff.
I love the change in the air, especially in the Handmade community. There's people your age. There's another member called Negate. He's like 19 and he's like writing his own compilers and wanted to compete with LOVM, you know, and like wants to do it. And same like you, just like full control, like not letting them be corrupted by like corporate influence, that kind of thing. So like I'm seeing a change in the air, like in the community, like people wanting to do it this way, and that gives me hope that we don't have to be like stuck with what we have in the industry right now. So keep it up in whatever way I can support you. Let me know, and let's stay in touch. Maybe we can bring you on the show again. I know that we weren't able to talk about like very specific technical details of how you're architecting your game, like on top of Ryan's stuff. But maybe another time you can come back and we can go into those technical details. I just wanted to get like a sketch of your story so far,
For sure, yeah. Nice little,
All right.
nice high-level overview of
Well,
everything.
I will let you go. So thank you for the show. Audience, I will see you hopefully next week, as always. And Randy, thanks again. Keep it up, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It was great being here. Nice chatting to you.